Good. So I want to do something right now that I know they normally reserve for churches. I've never been to church myself, so this is what I've heard. I want everybody to take a second and look to everybody to your left and right and just introduce yourself. We've been sitting together for a few hours after lunch. We're tired, so 30 seconds. You get 30 seconds of my time. So say your name, where you're from. My parents are up there. Say hello to my parents. Hey, Mom and Dad. How are you? Love you. So where you're from, your major, name, favorite pet, favorite food, anything that you like to do in Ann Arbor, local food, things like that. 2 more seconds. 1, Mississippi. 2, Mississippi. Okay, bring it back, please. Shh. These are my 12 minutes. So what I want to do now, the reason why I had you do that, aside from make friends, hopefully get married, invite me to the wedding, is I want you guys to follow in a little exercise with me, and we're going to have to get a little loud for this. So I'm going to list off a few things, just things that we go through in our daily life, and the more I talk about, if you agree, the first thing, you just start clapping a little bit. So I showered this morning, you start clapping. This is all to solicit, response from me. I like it when people clap when I'm on stage. But the more you agree, or the more that you've done these things in the last 24 hours or 36 hours or whatever time frame I say, I want you to get as loud as you can, or just increase in volume. So at some point, you can't clap any louder. I want you to scream. I want you to whistle. Do whatever you can. And then I'm going to bring us down after that. Okay? So who has sent a text message in the last 20 minutes? Who has sent an email in the last hour? Who is worried about finals next month? Who's worried about their next, keep it going. Don't stop. Don't wait for me. I can talk over you. Who's worried about their next paycheck? Who's worried about the future? Who can't forget the past? Okay? Now bring it down. So that noise is sort of the noise of our lives, right? Everywhere we go and everything we do, we operate on that noisy level. We're worried about the past, but we can't forget the future. We think about schoolwork, but we're worried about our job. We love Mom and Dad so much we can't stop fighting with our sister or our brother, which I love my sister and my brother. I'm going to throw that out there. Great people. So I bring this up now because it seems like our lives are getting noisier. Before people say, bad news, or there's never a good time for bad news, but it seems like there's really never a good time for good news anymore, right? You can get an email in the morning that can change the entire complexity of your day. If you have your cell phone in your pocket, it could be a text message from a friend, a text message from Mom and Dad, an email from a professor, it could be a phone call from somebody. We're consistently and constantly plugged into our lives that we never really get a chance to unplug from our lives. And so I'm a meditation instructor. That was left out of the introduction. And what I find now, though, is when people come to me and they say, I want to meditate, I want to de-stress my lives, the biggest thing is this time crunch. They say, I can't think about tomorrow without seeing the rest of my life. And I think that this is intimately related to our relationship to technology. Like I was saying about the cell phone, Facebook updates, text messages. Things are coming so fast that we're sort of losing perspective on how long things really take to come to fruition. And so the first question that people always ask me is, what is meditation? I can't clear my mind. Well, meditation can be clearing your mind, but it's not necessarily clearing your mind. People say, I'm not a spiritual person. I don't believe in God. Well, some meditation is spiritual. Some meditation makes you believe in God, but not all meditation. We're comfortable with ideas like dance or karate or even weight training or working out. We know that not all, you say working out, you like to work out. Well, do you like to go to aerobics classes? Do you like to lift weights? Do you mountain climb? So whenever somebody brings up meditation, the first thought is, Zen, clear your mind, or de-stress yourself. But there's an important implication to this, though. Regardless of the meditation, if there's chanting, if it's silent, if it's guided, or if it's just by yourself in your room, nobody else there, there's this element of turning off the world around you, deliberately. Cell phone, put away. Computer, closed. Sign on the door, in here meditating, don't interrupt. It's a time where you can just close your eyes and plug into yourself and see what's going on. We don't have this in our lives. I really think that there's a dearth of solitude in what we're going through, or, our daily lives, class, all of that. And I say that because, we're ostensibly more connected now to the world than we've ever been. So people say, well, what do you mean there's a dearth of solitude? Or people say, I agree with that, They say, I agree with that. I'm always on my cell phone. I'm always, chatting with somebody. You can Skype with a friend who's studying abroad in Turkey, while at the same time downloading your lecture notes and texting another friend who's in a different classroom. We're constantly communicating. But I read a statistic recently that said that the average American adult spends over 8 hours a day on the computer. The last time I checked, 8 hours on a computer is not a very social thing. That doesn't even factor in the amount of time you do spend on your cell phone, the amount of time you spend watching TV or watching DVD. So if it was total screen time, and if they took it on a college campus instead of the US, I would tend to think that number would go up drastically. And 8 hours is already a pretty shocking number, am I right? And I say this because it seems like on one hand, we're lacking solitude, but on the other hand, we're constantly doing solitary things. But I would argue that our solitary activities as they are now are not structured, and that's a problem. Because when we do find ourselves with nothing to do, we don't know how to handle that. Without, clapping your hands and agreeing with this, how many people, you can just raise your hand in your heart, how many people feel at the end of the day when they finally turn their cell phone off, finish their homework, and they're just sitting in bed or they're about to get into bed, that sort of collapse, that what am I going to do with my night now? Should I call so-and-so? Should I respond to this email? Should I start, getting in touch with someone? Should I go bother my housemates? Maybe they're having more fun than I'm having right now. Am I missing something? I see this as a problem. I see this as we are disconnected from ourselves so much that the one opportunity in the day that we get to plug into ourselves, we immediately run away from it. And of course, this doesn't only happen when we're going to bed. It happens, if you're on the bus. Who here rides a blue bus? Raise your hand. Have you ever looked out and just seen 35 people all sitting like this? I'm fortunate I get to ride the blue bus and the AATA, the Ann Arbor buses. Nobody speaks to each other on the buses anymore. Everybody's like this, sitting by themselves, doing something, but they're avoiding themselves. And so when people ask me, what is meditation? I can't clear my mind, I can't focus. I say it's an opportunity to ask yourself how you're doing. It's an opportunity to say to yourself, I'm dedicating this time to you today to hear what's going on the inside. There was a rumor going around backstage that I was going to wing this talk. Everybody was saying, the meditation guy, so zen, he's going to step up top, he's just going to go off the cuff. And on one hand, that's kind of true. But to say that, though, implies the mind. It says that to go off the cuff or to wing it, there's two implications to that, The first is that I'm using the mind to give this talk. That somebody's standing up there and he's just going to, assimilate everything that happened today, use what he's learned before and start talking about it. The other implication is that I'm unprepared. And I have to tell you that both of those are untrue. To start with the latter, the preparation for this talk, at least for me, has been my whole life. The readings that we've done. We've all taken tests before. You don't get an A on a test if you study the night before. You get it by doing the work beforehand. And so for me, it's everything that I've been through that led to this talk. But most importantly, the last 4 years of my life, I've spent at least 2 hours meditating every day. That's number one. Number two, for the last 2 weeks of my life, when I found I was giving this talk, I spent about 4 hours meditating every day. So there's a different type of preparation. But to address the former point, which is the point about the mind, I think is almost more important. And it's more important to me because I'm not using the mind to give this talk. The beauty of spirituality or the beauty of meditation is we get to begin to move from here and begin to go to here. Because when I step in this audience, actually, when I see you guys, I'm not nervous right now. I see, well, I can't really see anything, there's so many lights, but I feel that, I know that there's about 1% of you who I know intimately, friends, my family, people who I really love and care about because I've been able to spend time with them. There's about 10%, I'd say, who I know from living in the dorms, being in class, who I know on a passing basis, who I care. But the point of an event like this is so we can open up our hearts, we can let the people who step on the stage inspire us. Which, number one, I think is hilarious that I was asked to give a talk at an event like this. It's number one. And number two, look at the room right now. The point of an event like this is so when you do go home, when you do have that moment at the end of the day where you can stand there and you turn off your cell phone, like I said, you turn off your computer, like I said, you don't feel that crunch. You don't feel like, I didn't do anything productive today. What's going to happen in the future? You have ideas that you can begin to assimilate inside your heart. It's almost without the mind. And I was speaking to my mom's friend who's here today. This is her 3rd TEDx event, and she comes here specifically to be inspired. But if you don't take that element to sit down with yourself, if you keep tweeting about what you're doing and where you're at, if you don't start to assimilate your experiences, that time crunch happens. Because you're sitting here, but you're thinking about being there. And once you start thinking about being there, then you're thinking about what happened before you're going to get there. And so when I talk about meditation, it's really this great opportunity to just say, stop. Here I am. What have I been through? What do I want to go through? And how do I feel right now? One of the reasons why we cherish our closest friendships is because these are the people who know what we're thinking even when we're flustered. I mean, we all call our friends in times of need. And you talk, you justify every part of the argument, and then you say, no, man, you just don't like her. Or, no, man, you just got to get over it. You got to go do something else, like you lost, big whoop. And they say something that we already know, but we're so adept at lying to ourselves or putting barriers up. Most of the time, we don't even know what barriers we're putting up. And what spirituality says, or what meditation and spirituality says is, no, stop. Don't put the barriers up. Work on the barriers. Work on getting through to yourself so that in any given situation, you stop using your mind, you stop using your intellect, your judgment faculties, and you just start moving from the heart. And I have 55 seconds, I'll be quick. And again, it's such an honor to be here. And I'll end on this note. Last week, I drove with a friend to Flint. There's somebody who wanted to start meditating there. And so in order to begin our practice of meditation, you have to start 3 days in a row and sit with a preceptor or somebody who's a teacher for a half hour every day. And every night we went there, this woman's a character, I love her to pieces. She had so many questions for us, but she kept saying, why would you sacrifice the time to do this? How do you sacrifice the time to do this? My daughters are in school. They're always so busy, this, that, and the other. All I'll say is don't be afraid to invest time in yourself. Yeah, I'm taking 16 credits this semester. Yes, I have out-of-school obligations, family obligations, the meditation obligations, things like that. But before I began, the preceptor who started me said, it's a 2-hour-a-day practice. He said it's a 2-hour-a-day practice, and, I looked at him and was like, damn, what am I going to do with 2 hours? When do I have 2 hours to give to this? And he said, the time that you put in, you get back at least double. And so whether or not your path is meditation or it's yoga, going for long bike rides or anything like that, start investing time into yourself, and I promise that you will get that time back. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been a blessing.